Hey guys, just me today. It's a vlog for Engage on All Fronts, and because we are engaging on all fronts of the hobby, I committed to going to a Warhammer 40,000 tournament this year. I've never been to a 10th edition 40k tournament before, so that meant I had to get an army finished, I had to at least learn most of the rules, and then get my arse all the way up to Manchester. Luckily, Laurence lives in Manchester, so he was able to capture it all in glorious high-definition video for you guys. We were also really lucky to speak to some of the pillars of the community. We spoke to Ennis Wilson, former Team Scotland captain and member of StatCheck, the Warhammer 40,000 content creators. We spoke to Zackary Becker, who is the organizer of the UKTC, who organized not only the Manchester GT that I was at, but many other events up and down the UK. And we spoke to Dan from Red Dragon, which is the biggest retailer in all of Canada for tabletop games. He flew out with Zackary, who's a very well-known content creator from Canada, to try and get some of the competitive flavour and ITC points that were on offer. We'll tell you what an ITC point is at the end of the video. At the Manchester GT, there was 330 players there. I didn't come last. There's a spoiler. But let's see how my experience was. Hand it over to Laurence. Okay, we're at the Manchester GT, and I wanted to grab Ennis Wilson, who's one of the few people in the world who can actually say that they are a professional player of Warhammer. That's your job.
It's a strong word. Professional Warhammer teacher, and I play events on the side. I think
you play a lot of events on the side.
There's a lot of events on the side.
But you make your income through strictly Warhammer-related activities.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I know that you've only been doing that for the last couple of years, but how did you get to the point where you're able to do that? Because that's an incredible thing.
Yeah, I'd been in the scene for like a decade at that point, and I'd really started making my name doing really well in UK events. And people just kept reaching out to me, being like, "Hey, do you do coaching at all?" And I was like, "No, but I'm happy to do some, send some messages back and forth." And eventually, with StatCheck, which is the company we run, we got to the point where I had Anthony, who was full-time coaching, whispering in my ear, "Hey, just fucking do it." So eventually, Anthony was just like, "You're gonna go and do it." So I did it. I did it for a month, then went to LVO, came back that day and quit my job and was like, "I'll make it work."
We've obviously seen that competitive Warhammer is a big deal because there's 300 plus people here at this one event, and it's one of dozens of big events just in the UK alone that happen every year. What's the demand like for coaching? Because obviously there's a lot of passion at competitive 40k.
It's really, really amazing to see a job that didn't really exist 5 years ago. There's now 10, 15 people doing it full time across the world between Art of War, Vanguard Tactics, myself, the Breaking Heads guy in Germany. There's loads of people doing it now, and it just keeps going from strength to strength. My workload has doubled in the last 2 years from where I was, when I got to stability to where I am now. And it gives me a lot more time to take time off and come and do more of these events, go to the bigger ones, like the ones in the US, take a week off for LVO, and not feel like I'm just, not making any money because I'm not working enough. It's been really amazing just seeing the community want to improve itself, not just for things like being best in the world, but for best in their area or for doing well in their local league better than they have. And then you've got events like this is the biggest showcase where people really put themselves towards it, but they're all doing it in service of the greater sort of like UKTC or ITC season of going, I want to be one of the top 10 tier players in the UK and stuff like that. And it gives them, a lot of things to work towards. And for that, people of all calibers of skill and experience come to you for help with that, and that's been really, really awesome to work with.
Obviously your job is dependent on the authority of your voice, the confidence that people have in the knowledge. How dependent is that in terms of sort of the general marketplace on your results? How much pressure is there on you to continue to play? You're hard on yourself anyway, I know that.
For sure.
But just in terms of the perception
I don't think it's as bad as people might think it is, where in the sense that obviously, I put a lot of pressure on myself before. I want to play for the Scottish national team, which requires being at something near the top level. But when I do well at tournaments, if I do something really awesome like winning a super major or something like that, it doesn't actually tend to come with all that much of an increase in terms of sort of immediate thing. What people tend to be more interested in is me doing interesting things. So playing a unique army, trying something new, and being like, hey, this is how you do this as competitively as you can do. Because most of my clients aren't trying to win super majors. They're trying to be good players within the context that exists for them. And for them, it's much more interesting to see me be hey, playing the game the right way and doing things interestingly. So, I have my stream games at Nottingham and LVO where I lost both of them in the final and the round 6. And, from those, it was just as valuable to lose them because people get to see, how do you play through a loss and take it with something resembling a decent amount of character, or doing interesting things even in difficult situations to try to get yourself back in the game, because that situation that people find themselves in all the time is losing, but how do you lose without while going down fighting? And that's more valuable.
That idea of playing the game properly, and that social contract is super important, and obviously the game's developed massively in the last half a decade plus of playing by intent, and the way that communication and information sharing happens between people at the tabletop. For people that want to get into 40k, there's obviously an overwhelming amount of information. People that maybe just play at home with their friends and want to sort of venture out into the tournament world, but it's really frightening for them, it's really overwhelming for them. Like, what advice would you give people? What kind of words of consolation?
If you're looking for, obviously the best resource is always going to be your local community. If you've got people in your store, in your area that play RTTs or GTs, smaller events, that are willing to take you in and kind of show you the ropes, that's obviously the best place. If you don't have that, I would definitely recommend one of the more sort of, I don't want to say commercialized, but one of the more sort of generic package, you know what you're getting into tournaments, like the US Opens in America, or the Alpine events in Europe, or the UKTC events in the UK, because you can get all of the information about exactly what it's going to be in advance. You can look up the rules pack, you can see the terrain, you can practice it, you can buy it, you can play it on TTS. You're not just going to walk up to a store and be like, hey, there's a bunch of people I've never met before, let me see it. You get that very much regimented introductory experience, and then once you go from there, you'll find people that you hang out with, you'll meet your round one opponents, and then you'll see other people in your local area that are going to tournaments with, and then it all goes from there. But the best bet is, if you don't have a local community to go to support you at the beginning, go to one of the bigger ones, and it's not that intimidating. There's 320 people in that room, 300 of them are here to have a good time and lose the game, and have a good time while doing it. Don't be put off by the fact that you don't have a ton of experience. As long as you've got a 2,000 point army and some enthusiasm, your opponents will see that and they'll respond in kind, and you'll be playing people in the same sort of mindset as you by round 2, round 3, and you'll still get some interesting experiences at the early stuff of playing against people who are maybe significantly more experienced, who can show you some of those ropes and introduce you to some more of those resources, especially if they're, a lot of the top players in any region are really invested in their community growing and being seen as healthy and wholesome. So I would definitely recommend doing that if you've got the chance.
Awesome, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Best of luck today. And where can people find out more about specifically what you
can find more from me, youtube.com/statcheck. We do a weekly show every Tuesday. We also do the 40k ELO. We have a dashboard. My coaching is all through there. But yeah, if you want to hear more of me chatting, probably in slightly more of a banterous format than this one, I would strongly recommend that. It's the best place to find me.
Definitely recommend that. They've got a great Discord community as well. Discord communities are massive for competitive 40k as well. Great way to find people as well if you're not in a local area.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, check them out. StatCheck, an amazing platform. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. Please.
All right, I had to speak to Zackary Becker, who's the man who founded this tournament circuit, the UKTC, and it's grown so enormously since you held some of your first events. How do you get to this position where, every month or so you're running an event of this size? How does it happen?
Well, honestly, it's a bit of a surprise to us as well, because, we do our forecasts and things like that. This year we're forecasting 20% growth. This event itself and the overall scene in the UK has grown 30% this year.
Wow.
So that's 30% more events across the whole of the UK. 30% more people at all those events too. So those two things actually compound, so it's actually more than 30% total. But this event here, we do what we do and we do it well. And people know that. We run the biggest events and we run them like clockwork. And when people know that, they tell their friends. So all we're saying to everyone is that, if you don't come down, you have a good time, bring one of your buddies, then all the event's going to double in size each year. Of course, it doesn't double in size each year, it gets a little bit bigger, but not much. And that's just because obviously everyone's free on the same weekends. But yeah, that's it really. We do a good job.
What is it that you do that's better than everyone else? Because no one else has got to this position. Even in America, there's not a circuit that is as established as yours at this scale.
So the circuit is a byproduct of each individual event. So each individual event is run based on a very defined set of procedures.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what those are because frankly it's boring, but number two, I don't want everyone else to know that. But every member of staff has a checklist that they go through that they know what their job is. And if they do their job, then everything runs smoothly here. So we run good events.
Yeah.
It's number one. Number two is everyone has a different way they engage with Warhammer these days. Some people want to play their one big event in their hometown and maybe the LGT.
Yeah.
Some people want to tour the country playing an event every month. Some people do want to do that same thing but every 3 months. So what we do is we provide the infrastructure for them to be able to express their hobby interests in whatever way they want to. And that's the events themselves, that's the rankings, that's knowing they're going to get fair treatment by refs that are well trained. We have a fair system of policies that they know where to find. And there's frankly no surprises. Like our whole thing has always been set the bar high and then make everything standard at that high bar. And that's what we're doing. People like it. So
you mentioned the LGT. Obviously, that's like your flagship event. It's one of the biggest events in the world. Can you talk us about the scale of running an event like that and how many people turn up? Because a lot of people won't even realise there's that many people that want to play tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, this year's, well, maybe a bit last year, but mostly this year's first year where we've had American companies and people like that start approaching us to come vend and do this sort of stuff. So what that signifies is that their brand and the knowledge of what the LGT is now growing just outside of England. So for a long time, it's been the second biggest event in the world.
Yeah.
This year, I am fairly confident it's going to be the biggest, just because of the way the timings will work. I think we're just going to, 40K is growing so quickly, I think we're just going to be bigger. We're very close to LVO every year anyway.
Which is the Las Vegas Open,
Las Vegas Open. So we'll be number 2. LGT is the London GT. So, what it is 25 game systems all at once. Okay. Now, 40K is half the market, or half of the LGT attendance, but it's 90% of the actual miniatures market. So actually, as a convention, we're more balanced than the overall market is. Yeah. But it is whatever each game system wants it to be. So by that I mean, it's like all the TOs we work with, my sort of brief to them is, what's going to be the biggest, most awesome, most accessible event you can run will give you a home. And for some events like the 40K event that I run personally, that is hyper competitive, but still accessible to an average player. So hyper competitive can mean you're 1 and 4 player trying to go 2 and 3. Doesn't mean you have hyper competitive. Does not mean win at all costs or anything like that. But for Kill Team, it could be a big festival where they were doing like multiple one-day events and having a big party. So really, it's up to the TO about what they want their community to have. And the LGT is just a celebration of organised play in the tabletop miniatures market, and that's it, really.
Incredible stuff. For people that are trying to dip their toe into competitive Warhammer that might be a little bit wary of going to tournaments, can you put their mind at ease and let them know what they can expect when they can come to these events?
Of course. I mean, like, first and foremost, I don't really like the term competitive Warhammer. I think the way Warhammer's changed is, I think organised play is a way better way to describe what we do here. Because most people here are competing against themselves. They're competing in each individual game against, I'm playing against you to win. But they're mostly here to have fun and improve their record event to event. Competitive Warhammer has those connotations that actually winning is the important thing, but it really is. It's more about self-improvement and that sort of stuff.
I like that.
So that's where I'd start. The second thing is what I'd say is, like, in terms of what the scene is like, you only have to talk to a handful of people here, they all say the exact same thing. It's like, it's welcoming, it's easy to make friends. And what we've done from our side, we can't affect everyone that's here because there's 400 people in the room, but we can ensure that everyone gets fair treatment and knows that they're going to get fair treatment, which is critical for them to be able to relax. You can't relax if you think somebody's going to screw you over. And then the second thing we've done is, because of our policies being very robust, over the course and growth of the UKTC, we've either whittled out bad actors, so they're no longer here, or we've given people corrections where needed so that they don't develop into bad actors. And as a result, we have a very, very light touch way of managing things.
So you've managed to cultivate that community, that culture amongst the organised play, as you call it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the culture in the UK is one where the referees can be light touch because the players are so respectful of each other.
I've heard people say that, when they come to UKTC events, especially international players, they're amazed at how sort of competent people are in terms of the general organised play infrastructure, which is obviously down to the stability that you have, the regular formats, how used to people are doing even such things to like playing on a clock and playing by intent and that kind of stuff. And that does build the culture of, like you said, self-improvement. I want to play better. It's not about getting the win. I'm not just trying to beat that guy. I want to play my best. And if I play my best and get the win, great. If I play my best and come a bit short, I can take lessons away from it.
That's exactly it. It's like, if you play your best, but you only roll once, like you're still having a good time. You're still having a good time, right? So that's really what we're all about. And like, the thing is our players all have access to our documents about how we run events, right? 20 pages of, if you want to bring this converted tank, what are your guidelines, right? Because we want people to be able to express themselves in there.
Hear that, Laurence? To bring your conversion.
Bring whatever you like, so long as it's fair, right? Fair play is what we care about. And most people are super chill, right? So fair play is a very broad spectrum. But we need to know how to officiate in cases where it isn't fair. So this 20-page document is, most of the time, people aren't going to read it. But we have a back-to-back with that, is not a public-facing document, but a document that teaches our referees how to police in the cases where they're needed to.
Yep.
Which is, again, policing is probably the wrong word. It's more like shepherding.
Yeah.
What to do if this model is not painted? This guy is probably not a malicious actor. So how do we treat him fairly? He's come to have a good time, but he has to be treated in the same way that the person who stayed up all night painting their army.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we have to respect both people equally and try to make sure that, as a whole, we are, number one, robust. We do what we say we're going to do, and we do it well. And number two, make sure we treat people fairly. And if you do both of those things, and you have a good brief, you start
growing year on year.
Yeah, people are going to come back. You know.
Where can people find out more about the UKTC and specifically the LGT? Because I know it's coming up later
so
this year.
LGT launched this weekend. It's already like 35% sold out. It's been insane. So if we track like this, it's going to sell out. You know, be the biggest event in the world, sell out super quickly. So that is on lgtpresents.co.uk.
Okay.
And that's 25 plus game systems. If you play miniature games, there's going to be something there for you. Painting competitions, all sorts. The UKTC, which is predominantly 40k, but has a very strong and growing heresy scene, kill team scene, Age of Sigmar, Old World, and now Mantic's Halo game, which is absolutely amazing. You should go check out that if you haven't played it yet. It's all on uktc.events. And that's our monthly regional events touring the country. You want to play Warhammer, you want to play anything on a monthly basis, that's where to go.
Cool. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you coming.
Cheers, man. Thank you. How did you get into setting up your own store, Dan? That's quite a big undertaking.
So GW had a program where if you can convince the local gaming store to start selling Games Workshop, they'd give you a free start collecting box. That was like years ago, right? Yeah. And I'm like, free box, why not? So I asked, and the guy said, well, there was more sales on eBay. And he's like, well, you know, if you split on it with me, you can take over doing the sales, and then you'll just get half the profits. I'm like, as a side hustle, okay. Yeah. It was a cyber cafe, so they had like a bunch of League of Legends and stuff, everyone playing that. Yeah. He'd rather play that, and he's like, oh, if you make that sale, you get half the commission. And then it just slowly ramped up. I ended up buying him out, and just kind of snowballed from there.
Amazing.
Right? Yeah.
And was that Red Dragon, or has it grown into?
So I had another store. That was a smaller store. Just before COVID, my grandfather passed. Gave me a chunk of money, and I said I can invest there in a very small town, population 120,000, or I can move to Ottawa, population 1 million. So I took the risk, moved over. 6 months later, sorry, that was just before COVID. 6 months later, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And
you couldn't get enough stock.
Yes. So what got me, like everyone knowing me in the area, was that I had to deliver stuff to people's homes, because like Amazon, how do you compete with that?
Yeah.
So I drive from my house to Orleans, where the store was, grab everything, drive it all over. I put 8,000 kilometers on my vehicle in a month.
Wow.
But because I delivered everything to people's homes, they want to come back, and if I didn't do that, I was going to be out of business, but it snowballed the business in the right direction. And then here we are, and everything seems to be going pretty good. Start sponsoring Stat Check, Team Canada, USA, Scotland last year.
What does that mean, sponsoring teams and content creators? What does that even mean?
So we got different deals. So, for example, we got Zackary here this weekend. I don't know if you guys have met him. If not, I'll make sure I introduce you guys to him. So what he's trying to make a run for the top in the ITC this year. So sponsorship for me is I'm using his brand. I'm making all sorts of products, dice, objective markers, mats, coins, and selling those. And in return, I'm going to fund him for trips like this so that he can hit the big events, because there's not as many in Canada, get all the ITC points he can. So he gets to do that, and I'm like, well, I'll just travel with you, but I'm selling dice and stuff while I'm at all of these events, and just networking, basically, so it's a business expense when I'm traveling with these things, because I have to meet people,
and that's what
right?
you told the wife, right? I'm away on business.
Well, actually, it's funny for her. Monster Hunter came out today.
Oh, yeah. And
so she's like, I'm going to play that. You can't go away. And I'm like, haha, I'm out. So it's working out very well for both of us, right? In context of Team Canada, working with them, I bought their objective markers and their dice. I bought their shirts last year. Team America, I bought their shirts. Team Scotland, I gave them objective markers and dice.
So you're really coming into this with like a proper business plan.
Yep.
You're approaching it as a real corporate
100%.
partner. So this isn't just like a bunch of guys in a garage.
So we have our gaming store.
Yeah.
In my store, we have enough. We have 20 tables. We can do a 40-man GT in the store.
It's a big store.
It's a big store. Largest retailer in Canada. So as an example, the Emperor's Children dropped today. I'm going to self-plug and I sold 60 boxes in 30 minutes, completely sold out. So like it's going well, but I'm traveling to these events. I'm selling dice that I'm making now. I do my own mats that have the zones on them, so which is very helpful for that stuff. And yeah, I'm just kind of connecting with people. So it's hard to ship across the pond, as they say.
Of course.
But everything's going fairly well at the moment. So if I can get to these events, I'll bring stuff in my backpack or ship it to the Airbnb, and then I can deliver it to everybody here, hit new markets. It's much more competitive here, I think, because 4 hours, everyone's at the event.
Yeah.
In Canada, a lot of people need to take planes, and it just adds all those extra costs, right? So.
And it's the same people, event to event.
Yeah, and like I know maybe 10 people here tops.
Yeah.
Everyone I'm playing, I'm like, oh, it's a Shark Tank in here. I'm like, I have no idea. But yeah, so anyway, that's the guts of the Red Dragon story there. So, and we're still just pushing our way through and getting mats, selling things, traveling to events, cutting into the States market a little bit, trying in the UK here, but again, how many events can we get to and stuff like that? But it's all about networking and hanging out, making a good community.
What do you think about the scale of the community in North America in general? Because obviously since COVID,
it has exploded. I think it's pretty good. Like there's a lot of new stores and stuff that opened up. My thoughts are always, if I can get 100 new players, 10 of them are going to shop with me. I don't care about the other stores. I get 10 instead of fighting for the guys that they have. And because of that mentality, others are kind of seeming to clue into that. And now we're all doing that, and it's just snowballing. And yeah, I think it's great. It's just go and go and go.
You've obviously tapped into like the influencer marketing as well, because you mentioned the stuff with Zackary.
Well,
I know you do the stat check stuff as well.
Yep. I mean, that happened because Jeremy is basically my best friend. And then he introduced me to all the other guys. We start doing some objectives. They make a little money on it. I help them with the brand a little bit. Is
there enough of a following for that to be like a legitimate
I wouldn't say it's enough to like quit your job on. Like stat check versus Zackary. Zackary quit his job, but he has to work ridiculously long hours.
It's like a Twitch streamer, basically.
Yeah. But like that was a very big risk that he had to take. So, which kudos for him. He's making it work. I don't think there's enough. There's too much saturation. There's not enough to like quit your day job and do it until you hit a certain threshold, right? But there's definitely sources of lots of income in the game. Commission painting is a great one, because you said you did some of that for Vanilla.
Just as a favor.
Yeah,
I offered it as a gift.
Fair enough. But there is lots of money in commission painting. I got a lot of people in my store now that just paint. Come in for paint nights, and like, I don't even play, but I'll paint because I can make money on the painting and stuff like that, right? So,
cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. No problem. Although we should probably play the game at some point, right?
Yes.
So there you have it. 2 days of competition, 5 games, 15 hours of playing Warhammer. It took its toll on my body, but my mind, I was so overwhelmed with the drain of concentrating that much, trying to remember everything. I'm not going to lie, I had a really, really cursory understanding of 10th edition, and it was so apparent by like the second game that I had a lot of work to do. I've never played with tactical cards before. That was a big deal for me. I had to keep looking up all of my unit profiles and weapon profiles and abilities in the Warhammer app, which is super helpful, but it took a lot of time. I played very slowly because of that. I was terrified of getting rules wrong, and even then I still got some rules wrong, which thankfully I was able to catch as they happened. But it was a brilliant experience. I learned so much, and most importantly, all 5 people that I played were absolute sweethearts. Thank you so much to John, Cameron, and Dan, who I played day 1, and Dale and Richard, who I played on day 2. 5 brilliant opponents who taught me so much about the game, and I'm definitely going to be back at another event, maybe on the UKTC, maybe another independent organizer, but I will be there playing some more tournament, 40k, and hopefully I'll be able to capture the experience as well and share it with you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again to Laurence for doing an incredible job on the shoot and the edit. Thank you to Inez, Zach, and Dan for talking to us. And of course, thanks to my amazing opponents, John, Cameron, and Dan, of course, who allowed me to film some of our games and get some of the action. Absolute gents, had a wonderful time. I would highly recommend to anybody to go out and get involved in the competitive side. The UK tournament community is superb. You'll meet some great people. Go out to your local gaming store, your local Warhammer store. get involved. Go and play the game. Learn how to play the game. Put those minis that you've taken so long to get ready, put them on the table and play some competitive 40k. It's really, really rewarding. It's a great challenge, and I had a great time. I hope that came through in the video. Don't forget, give us a like, a follow here on YouTube, and subscribe. You can find Engage on All Fronts on most social platforms as well. And we'll be back with another podcast episode, kind of talking about competitive Warhammer tournaments and all that comes along with it next time round. So you'll catch myself, Morgan, and Laurence discussing Tournament 40k. But thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that little extended coverage of my trip to Manchester. It will not be the last time I am at a 40k tournament. So look forward to that this year. See you around.